So we'll get started. I'll introduce myself first for anyone who has joined the panel and everyone else. First, my name is Praneeth Patlola. I am CEO and co-founder for Will Hire, a direct sourcing and a talent pool solution. Enjoy doing HR tech for most part. I've been a developer most of my career, then converted myself into HR tech. Everybody knows in this group how that works. But real quick, we have an amazing panel today, and the topic of interest is more curious to everyone. Start with Mark Jones. Mark, thanks for being here on the panel. A little intro on Mark here. Mark is a executive VP at Alexander Mann, who just rebranded as VRAMS, which looks amazing. Mark, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Mark has several years of experience and expertise in the talent acquisition industry from a workforce management, significantly driving the operations at AMS. In fact, he's one of the first employees or the longest standing employees within AMS for about more than 24 years, I guess, after the founder. And he also relocated recently in 2013. Is that right, Mark?
That's
to
correct,
US today to lead the contingent workforce operations for North America, leading the pathway for AMS. So a lot you could share in your recent experience, Mark. Love to hear that. Thanks for being here. And then we got Satish here, who is the co-founder and CEO for Glider.ai, which is a technology platform in the assessment world or talent curation world, which is more relevant to our topic too. Satish is a HR tech fanatic like me, and then he has gone through his own iterations of building technology. He has worked with Oracle in the past and is also, if I understood, is a UC Berkeley alumni and IIT Kharagpur grad. Thanks, Satish, for being here. Love to hear more your insights. Dan Sainz, again, CEO of Tritify, if I spell that right, an assessment and personality and visual-based assessment platform, which Dan also, I was reading just before the session, he's also having a black belt in martial arts.
That's true.
And he has some really nice articles if people like to Google him, and he has some personal articles written down on Medium, I just read, which is very helpful on how to know, not just to know the POC, but just to know the whole ecosystem when you're going out for business. So thanks, Dan. Thanks for being here. Great panel. So really quick, the topic, right? What's all this fuss about talent curation? And if anyone has paid attention, I think talent curation as a keyword has taken a big buzzword. For the past 3 or 4 years, contingent staffing is slowly grooming up over a period of time. But technically speaking, in a layman's term, how do you better assess candidates is, again, the core topic of talent curation or crux of it. One clarity I like to bring to the group again is talent curation, what we are referring to here, and is more relevant to the contingent staffing world from contract management programs in doing that. So with that, I'll open the stage. Here goes my first question as such. What does talent curation really means? And Mark, given your journey with AMS and from RPO expansion worldwide, and now leading that direct sourcing and talent curation effort, maybe you can help us understand, like, what do you think? What does this talent curator means really for us?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Praneeth. I think there's so many different sort of definitions of what a talent pool really is, and I think as we're going to sort of go through the course of this this session, in terms of technology plays a huge part in it, and how do you treat candidates, and ultimately there's the word curation. And then there's the word talent pool. There's a staffing database. It means many different things. But I think from my perspective, really, this a talent pool is really the creation, and it's the an area where you can put candidates but they are a fundamental part of an organization's talent acquisition strategy. And we'll talk about maybe later on in terms of where it fits into the recruitment lifecycle. But really, this is about a pool of candidates. You have to think really hard about how you're going to treat these candidates, how you're going to assess these candidates, what is the criteria to enter into this pool, which is where assessment comes in. And there are different ways, different technologies to help on that. How are you going to communicate to these candidates that are in this pool? The importance of brand can link into that as well, which I'm sure we're going to talk about as well. What messages are you going to say? So broadly speaking, for me, a talent pool is a repository of candidates that are an integral part of an organization's talent acquisition lifecycle, and that you've really thought long and hard about how, why, and what you're going to communicate to these individuals.
Awesome. And I want to extend that a little bit more on very specific to the curation aspect of the talent pool there. When we're thinking about talent curation, I know it's like widely used when it comes to direct sourcing as such. But what we also figured out to clarify what really that means in our world is when organizations are looking to source candidates directly or use a provider or a platform which is equipped with the talent pool engagement and management, talent curation is not just about a candidate is coming in, I just need to know how to talk to this person and what methodology I do use to curate this person who is in my applicant pool. It is much beyond that. It includes the talent engagement, building out the employee value proposition brand, so that the recruitment marketing efforts that we need to do through the engagement of talent through the life cycle, part of the talent life cycle within a CRM by itself or outside. The messaging is also a key element, is what we have observed. There is a lot to it, but I think that kind of speaks for like where that fits into it. But that goes to my next question, where when it comes to talent curation in itself, where does this really fit into direct sourcing? We'll open up that connecting, and this pretty much connects the whole topic together of when it comes to direct sourcing, in my words of a definition, when enterprises in today's world are engaging the talent directly, where for the past decade or more than that, the HR technology has been enabling organizations on the HR side to really address that full-time direct hire space with employer branding, talent CRMs, recruitment marketing. All that is heavily engaged, and even the assessment tools like Stratify, Glider, several others, enabling them to use data-driven methodologies. But that never has been applied on the contingent side. Majority of our industry is still kind of leaned in how we have been doing business for a very long time. But in the past 3 years, the dialogue has changed significantly. It's no longer a buzzword. Direct sourcing is becoming kind of more of a mainstream where talent can be attracted and engaged. So when it comes to this direct sourcing topic, let's talk a little bit more on how does the talent curation fit into this direct sourcing modeling? And let's go around the table. Mark, maybe you can take a hit at it first.
Yeah, for me, it's the fundamental enabler of a direct sourcing model, and it really should be the first port of call for when organizations go. And I think part of the success of any sort of talent creation has to be about having enough candidates in the pool. And so that talent pool density is, I think, is really important. So you've got to have enough candidates in there. But first and foremost, for me, organizations look at this in different ways. One way of looking at it is that this could be a home for your pre-ID'd workers, for your alumni, for your recent retired. We work for a large engineering organization that has had a large number of people that have retired, and they're using a talent pool to sort of capture those individuals and bring them back in. And we've seen a real ramp up of that sort of this year as demand has come in. So for me, I think it's it's the beginning of that process. Direct sourcing can mean different things to organizations. Some organizations will put all kinds of individuals in a talent pool. Others will just put referrals or pre-IDs. But I think it's that that initial starting point for a direct sourcing strategy, and making sure that you've got enough tools and enough methodologies to make sure that you've got enough people in that talent pool. And then how you use it can vary. A direct sourcing talent pool will never replace the full staffing sort of ecosystem, but it can have a place within it. And normally that place is at the start of the process in terms of, before we go out to market, do we have anybody that is sitting in that talent pool that wants to work for this organization, and is registered and is pre-assessed, and then we can pull them out to start with.
Awesome. And Dan and Satish, maybe you can take that to forward when it comes to, like Mark mentioned, the tools and techniques and mechanisms and how to assess this candidate to also ensure they are vetted on an ongoing basis or in a prior basis and making them ready. I know you both have went through your individual journeys of technology assessment innovation in applying that to make it really fast and easy. So maybe you can share some science behind it, your journeys, and how you're contributing in that curation funnel. Maybe Dan, you can go first.
Yeah, absolutely. I think first, just I wanted to note from the Tradeify side, we've predominantly worked directly with full-time work or with hourly workers. And so for us, moving into this kind of direct sourcing world, contingent world is newer and something we're definitely learning more about. The thing that I've learned as we've been heading into it is that at the core, it's all the same. We need to find the right person for the right job to put them in the right position. I like to think of talent curation in like a metaphor to art curation. So imagine you're setting up an art exhibit. First, you need art, then you need quality art, then you need art that matches what your exhibit is. And so there's kind of these 3 steps that you need to fill in from there. That gathering of the art is building the talent pool. The finding the quality, that's what my company predominantly does. We're looking to find that quality fit. And then from there, it's that match, basically, of does this make sense for the brand? Does it make sense for the company and the position? So what we do at Tradeify is kind of a deeper form personality assessment, but it's done in a 2-minute interval. So it's a much faster, more fun and engaging way to measure personality that can be applied to roles where you're looking for contingent work or hourly work, and you need to move people through that process more quickly, but still find that kind of smarter degree of match on the other side.
That's awesome. That summarizes everything. And I was reading through your research paper, which indicates how the science of visual science of humans can enable, like, what are you, kind of a child's game. When you are like 3-year-old, maybe you play those games. And how that is enabling now into the assessments to derive personalities, because nobody wants to take an MBTI test these days, sitting for 2 days, right? With that, Satish, I know you have done much more deeper in terms of like enterprises, professional side, and your platform has enabled within the direct sourcing ecosystem. I know you guys helped us a lot, but maybe you can go deeper into from an assessment point and a curation where you kind of add those points out there.
Sure, Praneeth. So my journey is pretty much similar to Daniel in the way that I did start from the full time, but then I spent a lot of time on the contingent marketing side. And coming from the engineering background like you, Praneeth, let me say that I want to make sure that the definition is a little bit more tighter, because there's so much confusion, and some of the things Mark said that, hey, entry point need to be identified. Somebody said branding can be also used as a way to curate people. In my world, there are 3 things: relevancy, competency, and intent. Competency is the part where I come in the picture, right? So when you say, hey, there is talent curation, I would really mean that what are the characteristics of that? So it has to be scientific, it has to be objective, it has to be standardized, and it has to be repeatable. So that we understand what does talent curation mean, right? If you can check those boxes, I think, yes, this is talent curation. We do it manually, automated, psychometric, doesn't matter. This is talent curation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, coming back to Glider, I come from a little other extreme than Daniel, where I totally believe that people should be able to do the real world task that will mimic the first day at the job. And that evaluation is really key to make the right hire, right? And in the context of direct sourcing, really, if the candidates are sitting in your pool now, or sourcing from different channels, some of them Mark pointed out, returning employee or redeployment. Um, the idea here is to be able to proactively go out and build that vetted pool of candidates. Right now, I will also say that there are two parts here. There are always some evergreen jobs, right? For that, these fast moving, high velocity, high volume jobs, the ideal suggestion would be that, hey, have this pre-vetted pool of candidates, whereas some low volume or sporadic job categories with lesser impact, maybe you can take a reactive approach of vetting candidates to save some money. So that's both of, I answer both
Awesome.
the definition part and where does fit in the direct sourcing.
That totally makes sense, and I'm glad you brought that up as such to that pre-vetted talent pool, which can be assessed for regular roles, and I think Mark was also resonating on the same. It's like you would have a list of pool, which could be a previous contractors or previous former employees or a retirees network or a new network, which is formed through the newer sourcing approach of a new referrals or an online recruitment marketing efforts. But how do you vet them through the process? And how do you pre-vet them if it is a repeated role, so you can impact really the time to hire, which is the key metric in any of our contingent staffing programs, or for that matter in talent acquisition in general. And that key for that is like, how do you pre-vet? Now that kind of also challenges us, because there is also a cost of transaction, and because of the cost of volume of the transaction increases the larger cost, and how to do that. What that brings to me to is, how do you do that? Is there a one size fits all model really relevant? Because there is tests in Glider, there is a model in Tradify, and there are n number of other tools organizations are already using, and those tools could be, and tests could be generalized, or those curation models could be generalized. Does it really matter to use a generalized model? How would it matter? Can you kind of each of us can take a stab at that? Mark, Satish, Daniel, anyone can go.
I can try that a little bit. So, I mean, the standard answer is, of course, one size fits all is not the approach, but there are a few examples in some few job categories, let's say, blue collar jobs or light industrial jobs, where maybe the sub-segmented talent pool will do just fine. Because imagine a worker, or you're looking for a job, you're looking for a candidate for warehouse worker, meat cutter, maybe seasonal fruit picker, right? It requires mainly the physical ability to be able to do the job, right? And the criteria is, are they available, right? However, even in those categories, we should ideally assess the candidates based on their listening ability to follow the instruction, maybe safety related things, attention to detail, and maybe a few more human traits. So there are a few examples where, depending on which company, what do they do, which category, there could be pretty much segmentation would work. But beyond that, still I would like to have them pre-vetted through automated assessment engine to avoid the bias in the process as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Dan, Mark, you guys want to take a hit at that one size fits all model again?
Yeah, I'm not sure that there is that one size fits all. I think you hit something, Praneeth, that I think is really important, and that's time to hire. And one of the benefits of a curation talent pool is, if you've got people in that talent pool, and the subsections of that talent pool can really help that speed to hire. So some examples in terms of how we've broken down talent pools: it could be based on geography. It could be based on skill set. We have even had some examples of organizations that have hired graphic designers, and actually they want to actually see their portfolio, or us to have pre-vetted that the portfolio is relevant for that organization. So I think what's really important is understanding what's important to the organization. What does the organization want to have in the talent pool, and what are they trying to use it for? So is it going to be used for project managers on the East Coast, for example? Okay, great. If that's what you're going to use, then to Satish's point, you can have some element of vetting and qualification based on that criteria. But the chances are, to get the best out of the talent pool, there should be multiple segments, there should be multiple elements. And I think this all comes back to what is that organization trying to drive? Because like anything, it should be a living thing. The technology helps with the productivity, it helps with how you create it, how you communicate to the individuals. But first and foremost, I think it comes back to what is that organization trying to achieve, and what do you want the talent pool to do?
No, that totally makes sense. And you both brought points around like the segmentation, which is like light industrial is a hot topic in our arena, especially when we are looking at how differently can it be done, because you cannot expect a complete assessment to be rolled out for a person to go through, especially for contingent jobs, because they're fast moving, especially in light industrial in doing that. And in order to achieve what I call as like Uberized model for enterprise light industrial, assessments play and a curation plays such a key role, because you're building a very geo-local curated talent, and within that you're qualifying those attributes from a skill, competency, a location wise, how fast they can come in, and availability, which is one of those key criteria. I know, Dan, I think you guys have done some amazing work with AMS in terms of like having that automated funnel of curation through that test, which is like the 2 minutes test, which I think is like more relevant to that particular category, the way I say it, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I would say there's not a one size fits all that's going to work across everything, but the more you can make the data universal across to everyone and then sub-segment the data needed for that client, I think the better results you can get from there, and the more useful that talent pool will be down the road for other roles, other needs, etc. What we've done with AMS is actually we've launched a platform called Hourly, and it's focused on high volume roles, where across the board, they're taking our assessment as part of a chat experience, a conversational experience that's giving a similar flow for every candidate. But of course, that constellation of unique traits that you're looking for that company, that job, that role are completely different. But having that universal kind of data set allows you to scale that better across a larger client portfolio.
Yeah. Now that kind of also touched, like I think most of us touch also one important item, like Satish touched, the bias. Like when you're building talent curation, there is two sides of it the way you see it. One is the technology enablement, which enables you to assess candidates faster in a more data-driven approach. But there is also a human element, and I think, Mark, you have already experienced, and you probably have practiced this on a day-to-day in the organization, where there is still a human component in addition to the automation. And while we do this, how do we stay out of bias? Because diversity being such a hot topic of conversation now become a hot topic in our industry from a contingent staffing point of view. People are now thinking about how do we build diverse talent pools? Also, how do we not stay, how do you avoid conscious or unconscious bias through this process? And we do have to apply part of that curation process. Again, anyone can take a stab at this, like, what patterns are you seeing? Any best practices? How is diversity or a bias handled within the curation process?
I could start here. I think, in general with bias and diversity, so much attention is put on the last step in the process when people talk about this, that final selection of the candidate. And at that point, you are so far past the issue of bias. It starts way back at the beginning. And if you don't get a diverse talent pool from day one, it's impossible to end up with a diverse employee set at the end. It's just, You need to start at the beginning and work bit by bit through every step of your funnel to make sure that you are not passively just avoiding this, but instead actively trying to solve for it.
Can I try that?
Yep, go for it.
Praneeth, this is my favorite question. So let me start from that. And rightly, as Daniel said, that it has to start from the top of the funnel, right? And like humans are biased, like it or not. So the answer is automate the curation period, right? Now, you have to take the data-driven approach in the hiring decision to find the fitment and capability for the job. Let me just paint a picture. Imagine a system where you invite candidates to perform some simulated task that is representative of the job they're going to do after joining the company, right? And they can truly showcase their capability. But once candidates perform the task, system auto scores, stack ranks them on predefined criteria. But this is still a blind test for hiring managers. So they don't get to see the personally identifiable data of the candidates, who they are, their picture, image, nothing, everything is blind for them. They decide just based on the auto scored criteria predefined that is relevant for the job. And then they have to shortlist few of them. Once they shortlist, only then you reveal who they are. Imagine this world. The decision making is so much clear and without any bias. So a human plus system has to work together to really bring the D&I initiative at the organization. And at Glider, we do it very well, by the way.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. Great. While we are talking about the bias, one of the key things which as a pattern and a challenge which everybody poses in bias recruiting is the HR tech industry has transformed into more of a video heavy recruiting, and living in a video world like we are today virtually, and with LinkedIn and several other channels, people are transforming themselves into a no resume world is a topic which always comes in, and which means you are looking at people, which means you are making decisions on people's voice, people's profile as such, and who, what, and everything. There's always a challenge and to bring a balance between this growing modern tech adoption. So I always believe that we have to rewrite what we are doing in terms of the conscious or unconscious bias and redo the topic a little more heavily, because we're trying to do a patchwork everywhere we go on how to anonymize our data when we can. But I think this is beyond anonymity. This is more of a practice we have to within organizations, within staffing companies, recruiters, within hiring managers, within the curation. I think from a curation point of view, how do you create an unbiased curation process is like really important, because part of the curation process is employer branding, which we barely touched in this session, maybe some other day, which is such a critical component of it, right? So I'll open it. We have last 2 minutes, if I see that right. So in terms of at a higher level, when it comes to the topic of curation or direct sourcing, each of us can take a stab at this. Where do you see this going in 2021? And from correlating to talent curation, what are you seeing as a patterns? What do you predict in 2021 for this?
I think it is going to go from strength to strength in terms of organizations of all types, shapes and sizes, small and mid-market, looking to take advantage of this, really actually from the speed and the quality. Speed and quality is always going to be a huge important part of any talent pool. And you touched upon brand as well, Praneeth, and we can't not just say that if you're branding this, and most organizations are, then the people in your talent pool are your brand champions, and they might even be consumers as well. So brands are a massively important part of this as well. And I think that will become more of a trend over the rest of this year.
Awesome.
So based on what I've been interacting with hundreds of staffing companies, now I can see a very big commitment to quality. I mean, time to fill has always been the high priority, always. But and from Glider perspective, we want to bring quality at the forefront as well, at least at par with time to fill. And operationally, that has been a challenge for the organization, given the fast-moving nature of the contingent market. But this year, I can see that there is a lot more interest on adopting the quality in talent curation process and making it a very much standardized process in their operation.
That's awesome. Yep.
I completely agree. I think that the quest for quality is going to be the biggest theme of 2021. Just as more and more people enter these talent pools, just due to the nature of the pandemic as well, you're going to need to do more sifting through that and more curating to find the right quality to fill the role. And if you're doing that, the ROI on the other side will kind of remove any of the cost that's associated with it.
Yeah.
Awesome. I know we are on time. If I got that right, we are right on 11:30 Central Time, so I'm assuming we should talk. But really awesome insights, Mark, Daniel, Satish. Glad to be on this panel, having you guys on this panel, and thanks a lot for sharing your amazing insights. And I think we will continue this dialogue all through this year from a curation point of view, which is the most important topic in the transformation our industry is going through on the contingent side, especially, and I think we'll collaboratively probably help understand this topic better, because there's always confusion around this topic, which is the most confused topic. Is like, what does it mean? Like any advice today, you ask like, what does talent curation even mean? I don't know what that is, right? So I think
Praneeth,
I think we can go.
Is this QA session right now, or that's separate? And you said we at 9.
I don't think there is a Q&A plan for this one. It's 30 minutes, if I understood that right, from Jan. You could take questions from anyone who is chatting here. I don't think anybody is able to get on the video.
Okay.
Okay, there is a question from Brian McGuire. You could take. What about user experience? How do you keep pooled talent engaged and interested?
Something we do at Tradeify is, once we have kind of that insight into the personality of the individual, we then curate the content coming back to them based on their personality. So trying to really personalize any of that communication can be a way, I think, to really keep them hooked, keep them interested, and provide real value back to them, which is really important for your brand.
Awesome.
Yeah, definitely the candidate experience is one of the key aspect in this whole process, because unless you get that, you can't get the candidate to take the assessment or answer your question. So we try to simulate their for the professional category, whatever they do on the local machine, simulate the same experience in the cloud, and that makes them feel home and continue to work on it.
I'll just say, don't ignore them. Don't forget about that. It's massively important.
Oh, okay. Yeah, great. And just to go deeper in the how do you keep them interested is one of the key things, or engaged. A couple of practices that I've seen through our own implementations is multiple, where we call as a talent blueprint engagement. Like in typical talent CRM world, when a talent engagement is you're bringing talent into a pool and marking it as a private talent, you could use a personalized communications. You can use a non-personalized or focused communications. Like in yesterday, a customer was asking, can we embed content here very specific to a specific talent pipeline and engage them through an automated or a content-based engagement? That is also a key pattern we are seeing from a more, how do you create a personalized communication impact from content that you can share, or referral campaigns, which is a very popularly used techniques to keep the talent pool active within the ecosystem, and also announcements around like keeping them up to date of what's coming out, any strategies which are changing, any new hiring plans which are changing within the contingent side, or any changes will keep them engaged through the process. But in reality, the highest amount of engagement that we have seen with the technology in place within the talent pools, from a point where you're engaging the talent pool, is truly the matching jobs with which you're engaging. That is the highest point of communication, is what we have seen. The adoption for subscribing into matching jobs to keep talent warm and engaged is pretty high when you look at any metric in any talent pool today. Any other questions from the audience? You can just wait for a few more minutes for them to hop in and share more questions. But it looks like we have a little more time here. looks like we have another question from Curo Romo. For a highly technical contingent roles, how do we validate foundational competence in such a short period of time? We find video and CV to claim competence where the candidate really only has awareness of the technology.
You want me to take that?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Okay. I think that is where the design of the evaluation comes into the picture, right? And typically, if recruiters are trying to do that on their own, right, it's very hard. I mean, they are not, especially for the technology role, right? They are not technical people. But let me first say that, most of the recruiters are well-intentioned, hard-working people, but they need tools and training to do the work effectively, right? And that is where the tool like Lighter comes in the picture, where we can work with their hiring manager, actually figure out what is the calibration of the talent that they need, and that bar is set by the hiring manager in most of the cases, not by the recruiter anyway. How can we take that input and transform into very much real world task, which if the candidate performs, it showcases their capability on the kinds of technology that they're going to do. So this is a sort of matchmaking of expectation of what hiring manager needs versus what they can do, recruiter can do. And technology can really give them the superpower to be able to do the task in a highly automated fashion. However, there is one more step where it can be semi-automated as well. What if we give that power in the hand of recruiters to do the vetting, but in a guided way, in a sense that, let's say I know that this is a job requirement, and if they just upload that job requirement or few key criteria, and system starts guiding recruiters what to ask candidate on various technology. Now, basically, we are empowering recruiters to do their job for technical roles. So the best of both worlds. They're able to engage with the candidate, and the system is guiding them. So either it could be highly automated or it could be semi-automated through the system, like the way I explained the process.
And I think the key component there in the question also asked by Cura is the short period of time, right? And when it comes to like doing it in a short period of time, I think the key element there is the length of the test, and also the quality of the test questions that you're providing, so that when a new applicant is coming in or a pre-qualifying any applicant, how fast can they do? Is it really built, which is like that one size fits all model won't work. So sometimes you have to come up with a customized curation models, which enables you to ask that questions in the right format, in the most relevant format, categorizing them, whether they are low level, basic or advanced, in really going into that understanding the competency at different levels as such a base. There is also another level of challenge which does assessments also bring into our industry, especially in a fast-moving contingent roles. Candidates have this reluctance sometimes, like when they have given option in the war of talent and they have 2 or 3 options available, they'll probably go for an easiest option. You won't get the toughest option, but the key there has been, that's where your employer branding and employer value proposition really comes into impact, is why that employer branding plays a key role to take that investment of 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 15 minutes test. If the candidate is not viable in doing that, couple of other alternative mechanisms again is based on how the process is set up, whether it's a mandated curation process of assessment or a non-mandated, which is where the curation team can still pick up the phone and still have that guided question or a checklist to walk in through and confirm that, or even kind of bring an SME into a interview process very early on. And there are marketplaces today in the market who provide interviewers on demand. Like we came across one partner in our ecosystem was eTechie, who provides interviews on demand. But again, those are expensive when you invest into it. So as long as you see the high value in those transactions, you can always invest and reduce the time, and in a very short time compete. We got some really amazing good questions coming our way. Here, one question Carol is asking is, you mentioned embedding content in the talent pool. Can you give an example and ideas of content? Great, it looks like it's come to me. So very specific example, there is one customer we have been working with who indicated they have a very strong engineering group who have generate content about what their infrastructure is, generate content about their internal engineering process, open source contributions that they are making, and they really wanted to leverage that content and transition that into the talent pool. Today, there is no direct mechanism to communicate to the talent pool to really engage the talent, saying that which is more relevant, which is why segmenting the talent pool into segmentation, whether they are tech, non-tech, or anything else, is very important, and leveraging this content which is produced by the organization internally or which is already used in any promotion. The second use case we just recently saw for a light industrial based customer is they are actually making changes to the plant, and with COVID changes, they have to produce a lot of content to make people understand at a larger scale, because they were not able to finish trainings as in bulk as they used to be because of the number of people which are allowed into the training rooms. So in order to do that, what they have done is they've created a mechanism to set the right expectations into the talent pool so that they know what's coming to them, what other policies they are rolling out for a particular site, what other changes, any changes they are doing, and they're also sharing through that any other specifics about trainings they are rolling out, which candidates are expected to have in coming through. So those are some contents which we have seen as a patterns organizations are training. Anyone else has more insights? Feel free to add that about the content.
Yeah, I think sometimes the overarching strategy of an organization, and again, this comes back to something that we haven't really touched upon, which I think is important, and it's the buy-in of the organization to this whole concept. And so if you've got an organization where you've got a head of TA or a head of HR or CHRO or whatever it is, who wants to share that information, and this touches upon brand as well, and touches upon the type of talent that you're curating, I think the organizations that you're working with, that content can be really rich and really powerful in terms of where are they going? Why should someone want to be part of this talent pool? Because they're doing something that is going to be revolutionary in their industry. That's a really good source of content, and that becomes part of the whole buy-in to the program.
Absolutely, and that's engaging and promoting your employer value proposition to keep that engaged, but also making them make you as a choice go-to employer within your talent pool, although they have more options.
So Praneeth, I would add one more point there, that for me, any reason to reach out to candidate, we should exploit that to keep it engaged, right? And
Absolutely.
we have to borrow a concept of drip marketing from the marketers that directly applies here. Find a reason to reach out to them and we keep them warm.
Absolutely. And so there is also another question very specific to assessments, which kind of indirectly address. Mandeep asks, many a times talent, especially senior talent, are not too keen in taking up an assessment. How do we ease them towards taking an assessment? And I think it goes towards the same theory of why should you have to give a reason to senior or any kind of talent why they should take a test, create a reasoning around that, create an employer value proposition around that, and make that interesting enough for them to invest into that. And there will always be a challenge, especially because the war of talent in the market we are always going in, especially in tech talent side, we always have a challenge. Satish and Dan, maybe you guys can share more insights on that.
I entertain this question almost every time when I talk to the recruitment team, right? So let me start from the very beginning that for any kind of talent, right? If there is unfair advantage, why will I let it go? If there are other means, right? But if you look at the talent pool, there are top 5% of the pool, which is like they're in high demand. And really for them, why will they take assessments, right? But if you keep that part aside, let's talk 90% plus talent pool. I think depending on the branding of your company, what you stand for, it really resonates with them. They will go through the process. That's number one. Number two is that it is their chance to showcase who they are. Can they do the job? And if you buy anything, you have to test it out a little bit. Not that now. What is that level of effort they want to put in, right? So that is where there's always a balance between how long they want to assess versus how deep we want to assess. And we have a balancing act in Glider itself. But idea to design the assessment so much, we're not testing everything. We're testing the key things so that keep it short, right? And you know what? Now we advise the clients that, hey, make sure that you keep the test short, but as a part of that, in return, if you can reduce one of your interview steps, that will help overall. So there is benefit as well from both sides. That, okay, we are asking you to take assessment and asking you to spend some time, but in return, we will skip the one interview step. That makes the overall process faster and brings a scale at the same time.
Yeah, I think I can add to this as well. And obviously, I have very similar feelings on this. I think it comes down to experience and ROI are the two things that can kind of get talent leaders on board. From the experience side, it needs to be something that's enjoyable and interesting enough that they will be willing to take it themselves. If you can get that talent team to feel that way, so will your candidates on the other side. Too often, we're willing to give candidates things that we would never do ourselves. So for us, that's obviously a key feature we always focus on everything we do around building. And then from the next side, it's ROI. This should generate better people for the positions for you. And that turns into real dollars. We are able to show that we're able to cut time to fill or time to hire in half in most cases for clients or more. We're able to reduce attrition by 30% or better. And so those numbers really turn into real meaningful dollars on the other side. And most people on the senior side of talent are looking at those dollars.
And absolutely. And it's also the correlated to KPIs, right? Whether it's a direct sourcing program or a supply program, your KPIs of hit rates or your KPIs of time to respond, time to submit, all these are correlated. If you don't have to submit 300 submissions to make 2 placements, that's a very, very bad number to be in. And you probably won't be in that program anymore after next time someone looks at that number, right? So how do you increase your hit rates? How do you increase your conversion rates of the candidates you're submitting, and curation and building a stronger curation process, whether it's convincing the candidate to take a test and giving a value prop of why, because they're enabling saying you take this test and you get hired model, and reducing the time to hire. All these metrics are correlated to each other, and there is no one model of growing. One interesting question Lane Martin has asked here is, contingent hiring success is very dependent on adoption within the culture and fit for the role. What ways can you set up contingent hires for success during the sourcing process? So it looks like the question is geared towards how do you assess or nurture the talent for a culture and a fit for a role for a better sourcing process of success for candidate?
This is very much a personality question. I mean, and this is kind of the key to what we do. Finding that personality fit is essential even for the contingent worker, because they have to blend in with the rest of that workforce. And if they don't fit in there, you're going to see real problems as far as performance, productivity, and long-term commitment.
And I'd like to add a little more to that. So one of our new partners whom we just onboarded with us, who are integrated, does a personality assessment using a different mechanism of color theory test. And a part of that, what they are also enabling is there is like a benchmark where you call it as a team benchmarking or an ideal fit model. What is an ideal fit model is, if there is a team of with a set of people whom you're already hired, whether it's full-time or a contract, technically your overarching company cultural definition is different versus that one particular sales, marketing, a call center, technology team has a different set of a culture inbuilt within those team itself. So how do you gauge that? Is you build up that ideal case model and create, this is the ideal case model for this particular team, and use the data and data driven and data science mechanisms to use assessments, part of that questionnaire or part of the technology assessments, to do cognitive and personality alignment. So that kind of tells you also how do you really prepare the talent from a from a cultural point of view, from a contingent side, and conversion. There is another question here. I don't know if the question is right here. Jim Hohen asks, how are you using realistic job profiles, good and bad aspects of a job in front of an assessment?
I can take that.
Yep.
So I think the underlying question there as well is that how good the job profiles are, the job descriptions are, and Mark and Praneeth especially, I can bet today that this is a problem. When hiring manager will write 20 lines or maybe just copy paste from somewhere, even recruiters do that very well. Maybe they're just always they have less time to do the job. But ultimately, you get a quality that is not representative of what the real job needs. And in that discovery process, as we work with the hiring manager, our team works with the hiring manager and saying, hey, here's the job requisition. Tell me what are the key things you're looking for, because we're going to ask questions on that, right? And that gets them to think, well, maybe I don't need that. And when we actually create the assessment and they say, this is what you want? No, I missed this one as well. So now there is a lot of things that is not needed. And by the way, there is a missing thing as well. And when it comes to live interview, they do those parts, but there's so much unconsciously doing that part, they don't realize it. And it's just yet another work to get the JD out. But that calibration is very much key to making sure that we have the right expectation, what we are evaluating for, and what the expected outcome to act on. It has to be actionable at the end of the day.
Yeah. I think Satish is an important point that we as well in this, and that's the ROI in terms of the quality, and you can measure that person that was placed on that job description and that assessment. Are they still in assignment? Are they leaving early? Are they getting good results? They're getting good feedback from the from the work they're doing. So again, I think that's an element in terms of it flows through all of the process in terms of the job descriptions, the assessment, and then the ROI at the back end of it in terms of do they stay and are they good people that an organization would have back.
We have a dynamic benchmarking process where we're constantly adjusting that fit for the role for this very reason, because in most cases, the job profile or job description are just not covering it initially. And so if you kind of set it and forget it at that point, you're probably assessing people on something that's actually not relevant for the role.
Yes, indeed. And one practice, part of the direct sourcing operational practice, which we had to embed as a mandate and almost through the onboarding process for any enterprise, has been job scrubbing model. So when all the vendor management systems have capabilities of job templates already predefined, so there is an exercise and maybe something slipped through the implementation process that somebody didn't pay attention or build the right job descriptions in a more candidate-friendly format, because many a times the job descriptions practice is take the job description, revamp them to make it candidate-friendly. Program manager too doesn't mean anything to anybody in this world, right? So programmer analyst also doesn't mean anything when it comes to developer. Like, what does that really mean? What do you want me to do? And that is so important when it comes to contingent roles very specifically, because when you transition that into recruitment marketing effort or into any candidate candidate attraction effort, that fails there. So part of any of this, either you correct it from a first instance from what categories that you're going after for curation are part of your sourcing effort, scrub that, create a template of a library and keep doing that. And I think we ourselves have created about if the number is about more than 1,400 job title libraries that we have to come up with very specifically for each category, each role every time when we touch a customer, because there is no way you can actually engage a talent pool with one-liner job descriptions in a talent pool specifically.
And Praneeth, go ahead, Margaret's point.
I was going to say my favorite job profile is same as last time.
Yes. One more thing, Praneeth, on this topic, especially in the contingent hiring, because it being a multi-party system, there is enterprise, there is MSP, there is a staffing agency. What happens there that it adds more complexity because of that, right? The information gets lost in between, interpretation gets lost in between, right? And add to that, there is this open secret that the quality threshold is always higher for outside candidate than for internal employee. How to balance it out? How to calibrate to make sure that we are actually assessing at the level that the organization really requires?
Yeah. And one also key component why job descriptions are so important of this funnel of curation with the AI matching engines or the matching capabilities that's part of now the regularized, I don't call it, it's no longer, it's a future, it's like now you don't practice it, you're falling behind. If you're not having a matching engine to assess your candidate scores, you're already falling behind. When your matching engine is as good as your data, which means if you have a bad job description, and in my analysis for 9 months of a search for a better job parser in this world, I can tell that our industry hasn't got to a mature level of having a better job parsing. But the only way to fight that battle is to really pay attention to having a better job description, because your scoring and everything beyond that process totally fails in an automation if you don't have the right descriptions.
Yep. Garbage out. So you really
garbage in, garbage out. So I know we have 4 minutes. We'll take this last question. How accurate are the AI matching? Is it really effective? And a couple of more questions coming in. How do you get the AI to pick a resume, use words in the description? I think this is a bigger, longer topic in itself. I'll take a stab at it, and maybe each of us can kind of do that closing note on that. So in our experience, even industry matching engines, whether you're talking about sovereigns, parsing and matching, which is the most widely popularly used and they're the leaders in the space, or any others correlated, each one of them has a different mechanism of parsing data, and the matching engine is very generalized because they're setting in a huge amount of database and data clusters and data science, which is kind of, again, regular data out there. Unless you customize it for your own needs, unless you create a customized matching engine on top of the industry matching engines, you will not be successful to create the right matches. So that kind of your accuracy really depends on how much effort are you putting in customizing your matches at a job level or in a pool of a job. Because today the tools are enabling you to customize your matches. Your AI matching does the default, but then you add customization to it, really, and that's really effective. And we have seen that effect increase candidate engagement because you're only sending that highly customized matches to the candidate, which enables your engagement in doing that. And I think the next question kind of is addressing all the 3 questions, which is about structure of the data and everything else. I'll leave it to Mark, Daniel, and Satish to close that on.
So I think from a user of the AI, it's for me, actually, I look at it in a slightly different way in terms of you need to have the right structure with the right technology AI to make this an efficient process. Because one of the other things we haven't really spoken about here is the cost of doing all of this, and the AI, the way that the systems help us from a recruitment perspective. That means that we can do this in a very cost-effective way, and I don't need to have 10 people doing it. I can have 1 or even less. So it's massively important.
Yeah, definitely. Just one point that as Praneeth said, you have to train the model for your vertical, for your need. Otherwise, the matches won't be accurate, right? And even if we're talking matching, it just make sure that what they have claimed in the resume is matching against the JD. Now, can they do it? That's a separate story when assessment come in the picture.
I think maybe the only thing I would add is that AI is not AI. It's not actually thinking in this capacity. It's following a series of things that it's been taught to do. And so whatever you put into the other side of that is going to dictate the quality you get out the output of it. Yeah. So just constantly think about that at this point. We're not quite to the level of true intelligence with this. So when we get to that point, it might change.
Absolutely. And that's why I keep advocating that AI is an overused word in HR technology industry and recruitment industry. We are still at a machine learning stage.
Exactly.
We are not matured into AI where a system can make all your decisions yet. We'll get there very soon, but we are still at a machine learning stage. customizing that to your own needs and building on top of it is going to be very crucial. So always look for that customization. With that, I think we pretty much reached to the end of the session. Thanks a lot, Mark, Dan, and Satish, for being an amazing panel and sharing all your insights. Thanks all the participants for patiently listening through, and also an absolutely amazing conversations and questions. I wish we could do this all day long, maybe someday, and maybe do this in person someday, but really appreciate everybody's time, and kudos to Jan and the team to really organize the world's largest staffing summit ever online. Thanks a lot, everyone, and enjoy your rest of the sessions.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.